Thank you for having me here. It's been a long time since I've been here. I think the last trip I was here, I was looking at real estate sites for Starbucks, and that was close to 10 years ago. So it's been a while. We were talking about where did I eat? I ate at the Waffle House. There's still a Waffle House here? Okay, well, I like the Waffle House. Lunch, breakfast, and dinner. It's just fine with me. So I'm a breakfast guy. Maybe that's why I work for Starbucks. I don't know. I work for Starbucks. So it is a pleasure to be here, and thank you for the Seattle weather. It's very nice of you, Lorraine. Trust me, I get enough of it. I didn't need to come here to get it, but okay, fine. It's nice to be in the territory of a winning football team, because where I come from, it's not so good. And it hasn't been good. Last year, I don't think we won a game at the University of Washington, and this year, I think we're three wins, and it's from a program that was really good at one time. But you know, you go through cycles. I guess this is one of the down cycles. And all I want to know is that someday in the future, I tell the coaches at the University of Washington, just before I die, I would just like to see, you know, maybe in the top 5, that would be good, and I would feel like, okay, my life has been worthwhile. So, 21 years with Starbucks. I am starting in the wrong place. October 31st was my last official day with Starbucks. It's, I haven't done anything for the last... So which one wasn't working? I don't think the 2 mics are going to work. Can you hear me without a mic? Yeah. No? Okay. I'll try it again. Okay? All right, try it again. So last Sunday or October 31st was my last official day with Starbucks. Like I said, I hadn't done anything for 2 years, so it was okay, but it still kind of was a funny day. You know, I was sitting at home, and I was I don't know, I was kind of daydreaming, and my wife said, "What are you thinking about?" And I said, you know, 21 years of my life, it's gone. You know, and it was a wonderful 21 years. It's hard to explain how you fall in love with a company in an organization. But I fell in love with Starbucks from the first day that I got there. It was a tiny little company. We had 28 stores when I started. There were 300 partners, what we call partners, our employees that work at Starbucks. So from that day forward, the first day I walked in there, it was a love affair, and it never ended, and I don't think it will ever end, because like many of you, I'm in a Starbucks store every day, because I go to bed sometimes at night thinking what coffee I'm going to have in the morning. But wonderful experience, and I hope all of you, and particularly those of you that are here at the university and going to school, that you get an opportunity to fill your soul at the place that you work, and very few of us get it. I know I've been on the other side of that coin, where there wasn't a day that went by that I didn't think I might be in the wrong place. But at Starbucks, not one day went by when I thought I was in the wrong place. I always felt that I was in the right place for me. So, you know, when all good executives retire, which I did, and I was on the board until 2 years ago, but I'd retired from day-to-day operations actually about 7 years ago. You know, we're looking for something to do, and so, you know, usually somebody says, well, why don't you write a book? And, you know, I said, I don't write books, you know, I just do things. So he was kind of, you know, disappointed with the title. And I said, look, just read the draft, and then let's talk about it in a couple of weeks. So he read the draft, and I came back in a couple of weeks, and he said, okay, I get it. You can call it, it's not about the coffee. Then I had to go to the legal department. I thought Howard was tough, but legal. Anybody work for a big company? When you go to the legal department, right? The first answer is always no, isn't it? Can't do that. So that was the answer I got, and then over time we worked through it. So it's not about the coffee. Well, you know, when you say it's not about the coffee, it begs a question, right? So if it's not about the coffee, what is it about? The first day I joined Starbucks, we had a handbook. You know, all good companies and organizations have these employee, or what we call partner handbook. And ours was about 20 pages long, and it wasn't until about page 11 or 12 that it said one word about people. Everything was about coffee. And then when it did mention something about people, it had all these things that you shall not do. It was kind of the Starbucks 10 Commandments, only I think there were about 30 of them. And then at the end of the handbook, you got to sign your name. I think, they'd like to have it in blood, but a notary is fine. And these are all the things you cannot do under penalty of instant death or whatever. And so I thought, gosh, that's kind of strange. It's a coffee business. We're in the retail business and nothing about people. And so I said to Howard, I said, Howard, I know that we are coffee roasters and that we love our coffee and coffee is our art, but don't you think this business is really about people? And I said, when I look at it, we're not in the coffee business serving people, but we're in the people business serving coffee. It sounds like a little play on words. It sounds like it's not that important. But it really is important because it sets direction for an organization. It says, what do you do first? Now, you got to have great coffee, right? It's like you got to have, good service and all those things. But those are the tickets to play. But the people side of the coffee, the human side of the business, that's really what drives it. And that was the point that I was trying to get across. So, I don't believe it's about the coffee. I think it's about the people. As a matter of fact, I think everything we do is about people. I don't care what you do. All of you in this room, everything you do is about people. If you're making widgets, right, and the widget goes into a printing press, and the printing press produces a newspaper or a magazine, right, it's to serve people. Certainly, if you're working in a hospital or a medical facility, it's about people. Right? No matter where you work, if you're working on the railroads, right, railroad town, it's about people. It's about making sure the goods and whatever needs to get to some place that serves another human being gets there on time. And okay, but we forget that. It's an issue. It's a human issue. We get so caught up in the things that we do, we think that it's what's important. The widgets aren't important. It's what the widgets do for another human being that are important. So it's my belief that no matter what, and certainly at a university level, I think universities typically, hopefully are focused on people, focused on the student. But we all know in our educational system today, one of the big battles, one of the big conversations is that are we focused on the students or are we focused on the organization? And so it's a question that we are all dealing with all the time. And because of the nature of the world we live in, I think sometimes we get confused. So, for the students that are here, I don't think it's about advanced degrees, right? It's not even about undergraduate degrees. It's not about, resumes, and it's certainly not about the title you're going to get, when you get a job someplace. It's about the people that you're going to serve and the work that you choose to do. No matter how much you think it's about the other things. And it's amazing how many people get confused. All the people we'd hire at Starbucks, we hired Starbucks people from all over the world, advanced degrees, MBAs, you name it, we've got them. Engineers, scientists, quality assurance specialists, everything. And many times they come into the organization thinking that it's their work or their specialty that's important, rather than the work that they're doing for the people that they're serving. So with that, I'd like to talk tonight about 3 of the chapters in the book. And I chose these 3 chapters because I believe they're the most important 3 chapters. And they set in motion the things that I believe that we need to think about in our lives. The first one is wear one hat. Now, I'm not talking about the hats that we wear, the hat of a parent, the hat of a sibling, the hat of a son. I'm not talking about the titles, the hat titles. I'm talking about one hat in the context of the hat that we wear as a human being that defines us. That's the hat that we wear that defines us as a human being, what our values are, etc. Now, my wife is always saying, it's easy for you to wear one hat, I got to wear 30 hats, Grandma, but that's the way it is. She chose her work. The person who sweeps the floor should choose the broom. So that's about how do we make sure that people that have the knowledge in our worlds are able to make the decisions that are appropriate to their work and supporting them. And then the third one is care like you mean it, like you really mean it. So let's start with the first one hat. I think the best way for me to talk to you about one hat is to tell you a story from my life. I was 27 years old and I was working for a company called Grand Tree Furniture Rental. You probably have Aaron Rents here, do you? The business was born out of the need to supply furniture to apartment owners that were trying to get out of the business. And at this time, this was in the 70s, at this time, young people were starting to move around the country, and there was a need for more furnished apartments, and so we were part of that industry. So I'd been at Grantry for a couple of years, and I had become the director of merchandising. I'd grown up in the furniture business. Matter of fact, I used to come back here all the time buying furniture, Virginians, Carolinas, and so I was in charge of buying all the furniture that we either sold or that we rented. And I was happy with my job. I loved it, as a matter of fact. I thought I'd died and gone to heaven. Never in my wildest imagination did I ever think that I'd be able to work for a public company in a job that I really liked without a college degree. So one day, I was sitting in my cubicle, and my boss came in and put out his hand, and he said, "Howard, there's something I want to talk to you about." Well, I don't know about you, but if you've held jobs for very long, when your boss comes in your cubicle and says, "There's something I want to talk to you about," a little flag goes up. One certainly went up in my brain. And I was thinking to myself, uh-oh. And fortunately, it wasn't an uh-oh day. It was a day. And he said to me, "Howard, you've done a wonderful job, and you've contributed to this organization, and we'd like to promote you to vice president." I had am I hearing the right things, because there was no indication that that was ever going to happen. And certainly it wasn't part of my belief system at the time that it could have happened. So he's talking to me, and he's talking about the raise, and I'm going to get a bigger cubicle, and all that stuff. And I couldn't wait for him to get out of my cubicle so I could call my wife. She was 2 months pregnant at the time. And I said, "Honey, you won't believe this. I got a promotion." And, she'd been wanting to buy a new car, a Volvo, because she thought that was the safest for the baby. And I said, we can't afford it. We were driving a Volkswagen Beetle that I paid brand new $1,995 for. Had houndstooth check seats, yellow. It was really cute. So that was going to be her car because we could only afford one car. So I said, "I think we can get that because we got the raise." And she was excited, and she was, patting me on the back over the telephone. So then I got on the phone, I called my brother and called my sister, and they were proud of me. And then I called my mother, and my mother said her usual thing, "Are you sure you want to work that hard?" And that was my mother's answer for everything. "Sure you want to work that hard?" My mother died about 6 years ago. She died at 98 years old, so she'd be 104 today. Until she died, she was pushing my buttons. It was amazing. I mean, since 98, still pushing my buttons, and I allowed them to be pushed. I don't know. But anyway, so that was her answer, and but I was excited. Oh, I can't tell you how good I felt. I mean, when somebody comes in, or you know how you feel when somebody comes into you and says, "Hey, you've done a good job," and everybody appreciates the job that you've done, and we'd like to promote you or give you something or whatever it is, just a pat on the back, Sometimes just a balloon that says, "Hey, attaboy." You feel good, and I was feeling fantastic. So they had some parties, and then it settled down, and about 2-3 weeks later, I'm at the elevator of the office building. It was about 11 o'clock in the morning. I was going out for a meeting, and the chairman of the board, a guy named Walker Treese, came up to me, and he put out his hand. He said, "Howard," he said, "I just want to tell you how proud we all are of you and congratulate you, and we know that you're going to do a good job and that one of these days you're going to really be a fine executive." That should have set up a little signal when he said "one of these days." And let me tell you about Walker. First of all, Walker was about over double my age. I was 27. Walker was in his mid-50s. So this goes back to the 70s. So, and Walker was the perfect human being. Walker had a head of hair. I mean, you can tell that I don't have that problem. His had a full head of hair, not one hair out of place, ever. He had those gold-rimmed glasses. They probably were 18-karat gold, and they were never smudged. Mine were always smudged. He wore these beautiful suits, and I think probably in the 70s he was paying $1,000 for a suit, which was a lot of money. It's a lot of money today. It was really a lot of money then. And not one wrinkle ever in that suit. I used to think this guy absolutely stood in his office the whole day not to get a wrinkle. Nothing came out of Walker's mouth until he had thought about it for 2 weeks before he said it. We know those people, don't we? Right? I'm never going to be one. He shined shoes. They tried to get me to do that in the Air Force. I was not very good. But, you know, Walker put out his hand, said congratulations, and then he said that little 3-letter word, but. Howard, there's something I've noticed about you. And, you know, you might want to think about changing some things. And so I'm all ears. God is talking to me, you know, chairman of the board. And so I said, yes, Walker. And he said, one of the things I've noticed is that you always wear your heart on your sleeve. Everybody knows how you're feeling all the time. And he said, if you want to be a good executive, you're going to have to learn to manage that a little bit better. Keep it closer to your vest. You know, you may not want people to always know how you're feeling. And he said, the other thing I've noticed about you, Howard, is when you go to meetings and, you know, you hear something that you like or something that you don't like, everybody always knows what you're thinking. And good executives, they don't do that. You know, they hold it all closer to their vest so they can make their decisions in private later. I'm thinking to myself, okay, what do I do now? You know, I thought they knew who I was when they promoted me. So I went home that night, and I talked to my wife, and I said, honey, I don't know what I'm going to do. You know, this was my conversation with Walker, and we both know me, and how do I get from where I am to where he thinks I need to be, because I want to be a good executive. So, I tried to think of what are the little things I could do to remind myself, you know, and I remembered something my mother said. I don't know if your parents ever said this to you, but my mom used to say it to me all the time, probably with good reason, but, you know, Howard, before you go to say anything, sit on your hands. So I would literally, physically go to meetings, and the first thing I would do is sit down in the chair and put my hands underneath my behind, right? To remind myself to not be too involved in the meeting and not show any emotion or show what I was thinking. After a while, you know, your hands get tired, your butt gets tired, so there's got to be a better way. So then I would take a box of paper clips with me. And I'd open the box of paper clips when I was in the meeting. I'd grab a paper clip, I'd start bending the paper clip. Little nervous habit, trying to manage my behavior, because I felt that if I paid attention to something else, that I wouldn't expose my hand, I wouldn't be emotional, etc. And after a while, I looked at the paper clips that are bent. I thought that's awful expensive, so I went, legal pads. Got 50 sheets of paper. There's 100 corners on the legal pads. I'd start ripping off the corners of the legal pads, turning them into little balls, and throwing them underneath the table in front of me. People could always tell how much anxiety I had at the meeting by how big the pile was. But fortunately, I was able to be a big thinker. And what I did was, I went, and this goes back, this'll age me, right? But I went to the mimeograph machine. And I mimeographed off about 200 little 1/4 inch or 1/8 inch sheets of paper by about 1 inch, and I typed on them, Howard, shut up. And I would take those pieces of paper and I would lay them down in front of me on the table. The person beside me couldn't read because it was so small, but I knew what they meant. I know that some of you are thinking that this can't be. I'm telling you, every one of those things is absolutely true. I was so determined that I was going to be a good executive in the image of Walker Treese that I would have almost done anything to do that. Anything. Finally, about 6 months passed. I went from a guy that couldn't wait to get into the office, that loved every day going into the office, doing my work, to a guy that hated it. I did not want to set foot in that building. I started being late every day. Not that there was a time clock for my job, but I just didn't want to go there. I went home one night and I said to my wife, and now this is 6 months later, she's a month away from having a baby. And I said to her, honey, I can't stand it anymore. I rue the day that I took this promotion. And I said to her, I want to quit. So then a tear starts coming down her face. And I'm thinking, what a jerk I am. Talking about guilt. All I could think to myself at that time, oh, great. What a great father you're going to turn out to be, And then she just did what she always did to support me. She said, you do what you need to do and we'll figure it out. We'd bought that car. We had the payment and we had no savings. So I typed up a letter of resignation. I was going in the next day to submit the letter of resignation. And you know that old adage, you don't always get what you want, but you always get what you need, and it seems to show up at the appropriate time. That morning I walked into the office building. I was early. That was the first day I'd been early in about 4 months. And I walked head on into one of my co-vice presidents, a guy named Bob Mays. And we were talking, and, you know, good morning. And then Bob said to me, Howard, you got a minute? There's something I want to talk to you about. I said, sure, Bob. And so we went into his little cubicle or office, I don't remember anymore, and Bob just looked at me and he said, Howard, what is wrong with you? The guy that we all supported to be an officer of the company isn't the guy that we got. The person that we always could depend on to speak his mind, to speak his piece, to show his hand before anybody else did, to be a contributor in the organization, which enabled the rest of us to feel free to talk. You're not that guy anymore. Some of us are thinking we made the wrong decision. I had never told anybody but my wife about that conversation with Walker because I had been so embarrassed. I was 27 years old. I was just a kid. You know, I didn't know. You know, I didn't know that I should have asked Walker, what do you mean? Or do you really want to change me in that way? Any of that. I just thought that Walker's word was God, so to speak. You know, he's the big man. You know, he's the chairman of the board. So I related the story of my exchange with Walker to Bob. And Bob said, oh, come on, Howard, Walker didn't mean that. And I said, Bob, I was there, you weren't. And then he said, come on, let's go talk to Walker, we'll sort this thing out. And I said, Bob, you go talk to Walker. So Bob grabbed me by the proverbial ear and he took me to talk to Walker. Then we sat down and we made peace. You know, and I didn't submit my resignation. Fortunately, I had it in my pocket. But the truth of the matter is, Walker meant everything that he said. He did. He was from a different generation of leaders. He came from another place, another space, another time. This is what he knew how to do. And he's of the generation that thought that, you know, people had to do the same thing. That leadership styles, the way you did everything, you know, there was a right way, you know, and a wrong way. And I didn't have the intestinal fortitude to stand up and, you know, say, hey, wait a minute, Walker, that's not me. The truth of the matter is, I didn't know who me was. Happy guy, smile on my face, loved my work because I'd grown up in the furniture industry, loved coming back here to the furniture markets. You know, I was a happy guy. And I loved Grantry because it gave me challenges and it was a fun place to work, and I enjoyed the people, but I really didn't know much about Howard. That old saying, you don't always get what you want, but you always get what you need. You see, that's what I needed. I needed what Walker did. Because what happened is all of a sudden I realized, wait a minute, somebody had tried to change my life, and I'd allowed it to happen. I'd allowed it to happen. And I made up my mind from that day forward that that wasn't going to happen again. The problem was, I didn't really know about myself. You know, I was just a guy enjoying my life, doing things I love to do. I never really thought about what were my values, what mattered to me. You know, I was an honest person. Did I care about people? What are my values? I didn't think about, okay, you know, what is my purpose in life? What's my greater purpose in life? What am I here to do? What do I want to do? What are my goals? What do I want to achieve? Spiritual, material, family, what are the things that how do I want to live my life? So I didn't know what to do, but I went out and, you know, you go to the self-help section of the bookstore, and there's a zillion books up there. And so I bought 2 or 3. Just picked them out, you know, it said something interesting to me. One book was called The Magic of Believing by Claude Bristol, long since out of print, but you know, and I remember reading through it, and then I read some other ones, and all of them were saying, look, if you don't know where you're going, basically, any path will get you there. So here are some tools to use to get your life more in focus. And so one of the books talked about how do you define yourself? How do you create core values, you know, in determining who you are? So I started working on it. What were my values? I want to be honest. Well, what did honesty mean? Once you say the word honest, there's lots of definitions of honesty, isn't there? Right? So is honesty, you go to the file cabinet in the office and grab a legal pad and some pens to take home to your home office? I mean, we've all done it probably. I've done it. My life now, I don't find that as honest. I say, I care about people. Yeah, well, okay, everybody can say they care about people, but are you willing to give something up because you care about people, something that you really value? That's the only way you really know. And then I said, okay, it said in the book I should have this greater purpose and a kind of a personal mission statement. And so, I said, okay, and I worked on it. It took me about 2 years to kind of get from beginning to something that really made sense. Something that when I looked at, I said, okay, this is a picture in words of Howard. This is what Howard's all about. So now, after 30, 40 years, I've got it down to one page, and I know what all the things mean. And I carry it with me wherever I go. This is Howard right here. That's all there is to Howard. Really simple guy. Hard to execute, Howard, but it's simple and it's basic. So my mission in life. What's my mission in life? And I stole this. I didn't see the good thing about this. You can copy. Plagiarism is okay, unlike what it says on the halls here. For your mission, okay, for your mission and your values, you can use other people's words. It's okay. So, and we'll talk more about that in a second. But I want to live my life every day nurturing and inspiring the human spirit of myself and others. That's my mission. Nurturing and inspiring the human spirit of others. Some days, right, the only thing I can do to nurture and inspire somebody's spirit is to call my brother who suffers from severe depression. And that's what I get. Some days I wake up in the morning and it could be bright sun out. I live part-time in Palm Springs, California, and it's nice there and sunny most of the time, and it could be like 65 in the morning, and I make my cup of Kenya coffee, and I go outside and I sit with my newspapers, and it's bright sun out, and my day is gray. My day is gray. I don't know why. I woke up gray. So I have to nurture and inspire my own spirit that day. I got to figure out what's going on, what's in my little brain, why am I dealing with this today? Fortunately, it doesn't happen very often. Fortunately, I get to focus most of my energies on helping other people and other organizations. So then I have core values: honesty, fairness, respect for self and others, responsibility, integrity, trust in self and others, a big one, caring and love. And I've defined those for myself. What do they mean? And I know it. When I'm not living up to those, trust me, I get the shakes. I know something's wrong. And I go to my paper and I look, okay, where have I failed today? Was I thinking too much about myself that day? And then how I do everything. I try to make sure that everything I do follows my 5 Ps. I do it with purpose, passion, persistence, patience, and performance. I either get the job done or I don't. If I commit to somebody to get something done, if I commit to my wife, my children, whoever it is, then I need to get it done. But I have to have purpose and passion too. Things have to fill my soul, or I don't, or at least I got to believe they will, or I don't want to take them on. So this little piece of paper goes with me wherever I go. I have it in plastic, so even if I spill a cup of coffee, I'm okay. And what it does for me is this. It lets me go look at myself and compare my actions and my words to what I say is important to me. See, it doesn't leave me any room for excuses. It's there. I know what it means. And so I look at it all the time. You'd say, well, after a while, you remember the thing, but why do I always read it? I want to make sure I get it exactly right. I don't want to try to commit it to memory, because when you commit it to memory, sometimes things start to lose their meaning. You'd say, why do you have to look at that piece of paper all the time? Most of you probably go to church or synagogue or mosque, whatever you go to, some spiritual place. Right? Why do we go every week or however many times we go and we say the same prayers over and over and over again? You'd think we'd be smart enough to learn those prayers, we wouldn't need to go back. But see, human beings don't act like that. We don't respond that way. We forget so quickly. In the heat of the battle, in the heat of a problem, what happens is that we lose sight of why we're here, what our goals are, what matters, what our truth is, what our values are. We lose sight of ourselves and our responsibilities. And that's why I carry that little piece of paper around. I don't want to forget. And I'm afraid that if I don't have it with me, that I will forget. So it's about accountability. So it's my hat. And that's where the word came from. That piece of paper represents the hat that I wear as a human being. It represents my values. There's other pages that go with it. I have goals that are written out. I'm a capitalist pig. I like making money. But I like to do it not on the backs of people, but with people. Starbucks is a for-profit institution. We've done really well. But we try not to do it on the backs of people. We try to do it with people, caring about people, doing the right thing. Does that mean we always did? No. But we always had a place to go back and check. We had our hat. See, organizations are just aggregations of people coming together against a common purpose, a common goal, and hopefully with common values and common passion. And a drive to perform, to make dreams come true. So, Starbucks has one hat. Remember I told you I stole part of this for myself? I plagiarized. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, President Gray. I didn't live up to your expectations of me. Where are you? See, most of you don't know about, what do we call them? How we live here? What are the standards? Huh? The honor. Okay, you know. Okay. So, I copied it. The first part I didn't copy. I didn't want to be one of the most well-known and respected organizations in the world. That was not my goal. Okay? That's a Starbucks goal. When we wrote this statement, we had about 200 stores. And I remember we had baristas and store managers and vice presidents, all sorts of people contributing and wordsmithing this statement. And I remember when this statement finally came out, somebody said, oh yeah, someday we'll be as well-respected and well-known as Coca-Cola, and everybody in the room broke out in laughter. We couldn't get that in our brain. That dream was just too big for us to comprehend. Just too big to comprehend at the time. But we left it there because we said, no big dreams, no big results. Right? That old adage, better to miss a star than not shoot for it at all, right? So we left it there. And I look back at that and I think, we didn't know. I thought it was going to be, I was trying to escape corporate life when I went to Starbucks. I thought it was going to be some little company in the Northwest. Maybe we would get to California and do, Nevada or something like that, or Arizona, and that would be who we were. 53 countries later. Amazing. Who would have ever thought? I never thought. I was just doing what I love to do. It was real simple for me. Every day, do what you love to do, and it just happened. I remember we had a meeting in Seattle. We had, at the time, 7,000 store managers. We invited all 7,000 store managers and district managers to Seattle. We took the big basketball stadium there, or arena there. And I remember Howard Schultz and I were sitting next to each other, and we just could hear the noise and the rumble, and we got up and we looked around and we say, how did this happen? And you think it's more than that, but it isn't. It was all the people of Starbucks that made it happen. The second statement. See, that's the one that got me. That's the one that got me. To be known for nurturing and inspiring the human spirit. Where does that fit in a capitalist organization? Where does that fit in a company that's serving cups of coffee? Most people would say it doesn't. Most business leaders would say, hey, wait a minute. That's not a business statement. How do you make money off of that? But we all knew it when we saw it. I knew it. I said, I've been looking for those words my whole life. They weren't even my words. They were just a conglomeration of everybody's ideas. To be known for nurturing and inspiring the human spirit. You see, when you say that, when you say those words, it's not one person at a time, right? I mean, it's one person at a time. I can't nurture and inspire all your spirits. but I can do maybe for you and maybe for you, but it's got to be in a way that is meaningful to you. And at the end of the day, Starbucks' success or failure is determined on that. Do we do it all the time? No, we don't. Do I do it all the time? No, I don't. I screw up big time. 2 years ago, my wife and I were in Palm Springs. Now, if you haven't guessed by now, I'm an A-type personality, and I love goals. I love to achieve goals. You know, that performance word, it's always in the back of my head. So my wife is an oncology social worker. She's got a PhD in social work, and what she does is she deals with people that are dying of cancer. That's what she does for a living. Can you imagine? Tough job. Tough job. She lives in the moment. Everything about what she does and how she thinks is in the moment, you know? And so, but I'm always on her. Oh, Lynn, hey, you're so smart. You got a PhD, you know? Why don't you write a book? You know, I'm always trying to get her to set these long-range goals, to do something, to do this, to do that. So we're in Palm Springs, and finally I guess I can't use that, all heck broke loose. I mean, big time. We've been together for 35 years, over 35 years, right? And this was the piece de resistance of arguments. Blowout. Finally, it kind of just simmered, and we said, should we go get something to eat, because we were both kind of worn out. So we went, and we sat down, we ordered a glass of wine each, and we started talking. And both of us at the same time said, you know, maybe it's over. Maybe we've just grown apart. There's something else. And then, you know, we're both crying, and, you know, I mean, we love each other, you know, and it was tough. It was really tough. And I remember we went home that night, and we kind of didn't talk, and, you know, we needed our space, and so we went to different corners, so to speak. And I couldn't sleep. I just could not sleep. And then I thought to myself, you idiot, what are you doing? What are you doing? And I went and got my piece of paper. It was like I had never read it. I'm thinking to myself, how could I have been so stupid? To nurture and inspire the human spirit. It's not my spirit that needed nurturing, it was hers, and she doesn't care about setting goals long range. What she cares about is being with one person at a time, dealing with one person at a time in their time of pain and their time of suffering. And here I'm telling her, hey, you're smart, why can't you set big goals? I couldn't wait, I just went in and woke her up, and I apologized. I said, I'm sorry, I was wrong. Totally. I was just totally out of line. And it's not like that hadn't been going on for a long time, but it finally had built to where she couldn't take it anymore.